Everyone's been talking about this new Dolby Atmos soundbar. Some people say it's the best upgrade yet. Others say it's just overhyped. So today, we're putting it to the test. No sponsors, no bias, just real performance. Let's find out if this new soundbar is actually better or just another marketing trick. Hit subscribe, like, and drop a comment for what you want to see next on Interface Craft. The hype versus reality. The first thing that needs to be understood is that the new Dolby Atmos soundbar being discussed isn't being advertised as just another upgrade. The company is positioning it as a next-generation spatial audio system, promising true 3D height imaging, directional clarity, and immersive motion tracking. Features that on paper would push it past what traditional Dolby Atmos soundbars currently offer. But claims don't matter until you hear the results yourself. So I began testing in a regular living space, not a studio, because that's where most people will actually be listening. The initial character of the sound shocked me. There was an immediate sense of clarity, especially in dialogue, that felt natural and unprocessed. And the bass, instead of being overwhelming or boomy, had that controlled, layered depth that you usually only hear in more expensive speaker systems. It didn't just shake the room, it supported the sound. However, Dolby Atmos isn't about clarity or bass alone. It's about vertical imaging. A real Atmos experience isn't just wide sound. It's when audio moves up and above you. It's when helicopters sound like they hover overhead, when rain feels like it's falling from the ceiling, not just rattling your soundbar. And this is where the first uncertainty appeared. The height layer was present, but it wasn't consistently strong in every scene. Sometimes the Atmos lift was clean and obvious. Other times the sound remained too grounded, too horizontal. This doesn't mean the soundbar failed. It means the processing algorithm might still depend heavily on room shape, ceiling height, and seating position. Before drawing conclusions, I needed a reference point. So I brought in the Sonos Arc, the LG S95AR, and the Bose Smart Ultra. Three major Atmos soundbars known for their vocal warmth, surround expansion, and immersive projection respectively. These models represent the current standard for Dolby Atmos in most households. Testing them back-to-back wasn't just about comparing volume or clarity. It was about learning how each one creates space. Sonos Arc creates a wide, clean spread, but struggles in height unless the room cooperates. LG S95AR delivers loud, open surround energy, but can sound slightly textured in the mids. Bose Smart Ultra is incredibly detailed and warm, but sometimes trades expansiveness for intimacy. And in the middle of these three, this new soundbar did something unexpected. It created motion accuracy. When sounds moved from left to right, front to back, or across the overhead field, the path felt smoother, more precise. Instead of just being placed in the air, the sound traveled. That's the key difference. Most soundbars throw audio into space and hope your ears fill in the rest. But this one seemed to map sound movement in real time. During fast panning action scenes, it kept up without blurring or smearing. In gaming, where positional audio matters even more, the soundbar performed with a kind of spatial awareness that the others struggled to match. Not louder, not bigger, just more accurate. But, and this is where the story shifts, accuracy doesn't always equal emotional impact. Because sound isn't just about where it is, it's about how it feels. And while this new soundbar delivered precision, the warmth and body of the mid-range sometimes felt a touch restrained compared to Bose or LG. It had the technical advantage, but emotionally, it wasn't always the most expressive. And that balance between analytics and emotion is where the real competition lies. Real-world performance, movies, music, and gaming. Once the baseline comparisons were clear, the next stage was real-world performance across different types of content, because a soundbar doesn't show its true character until it's tested in everyday use. So I started with movies first, because Dolby Atmos is built for cinematic space. The opening scene I used was from Top Gun, Maverick, specifically the jet acceleration sequence, a test that exposes whether a system can handle scale, direction, and power all at once. The new soundbar delivered a sense of forward motion that was genuinely convincing. When the jet roared across the screen, the sound didn't just travel left and right. It had depth, moving seemingly past the seating position. The ceiling reflection layer activated enough to give the impression of height, though not as aggressively as something like the LG S95AR, which uses dedicated rear height speakers to enforce that lift. Still, it didn't sound flat or locked to the bar. It placed audio into the room, which is something cheaper Atmos bars just can't do. Then I moved to dialogue-heavy scenes, because clarity in conversation is what separates a good soundbar from an exhausting one. Many soundbars artificially sharpen voices to make them appear clearer, but that leads to harshness, especially when watching for long periods. Here, the new soundbar handled dialogue with subtle realism. Voices sounded like they were coming from actual people, not pushed forward or over-equalized. There was texture in the vocals, the slight grain in breathing, the natural spacing between words. And that matters more than most people realize, because the majority of viewing isn't explosions, it's storytelling. And a system that can preserve human presence always feels higher end. Music testing revealed an even more interesting contrast. Instead of widening the sound to dramatic extremes, the bar kept the stage clean and centered. Vocals had a polished warmth, neither thin nor overly colored, and instruments maintained separation without collapsing into one another. But here's where personal preference enters. If someone prefers cinematic surround expansion in music, something Sonos Arc tries to create, this soundbar may feel more studio accurate than emotionally wide. On the other hand, for listeners who value detail and instrument clarity, the performance is genuinely impressive. There is no artificial haze around the highs, no bloat in the mid-bass, and no smear in transients. It isn't trying to be a party speaker, it's trying to be faithful. Gaming was the final test, and this is where everything clicked. Surround motion, especially in FPS or open-world environments, requires positional integrity. Sound must move logically, not theatrically. And here, the soundbar's spatial precision algorithm gave it a clear advantage. Footsteps, reload clicks, environmental cues, and object movement position themselves like audio coordinates, not just effects. When sound traveled across scenes, it did so with continuity, not jump cuts. This is the kind of detail competitive gamers chase, and very few soundbars deliver it at this level. It didn't just sound immersive, it sounded aware. However, performance isn't only about playback, it's about the environment. If your ceiling is high, uneven, angled, or textured, the height imaging will weaken. If your room is overly open, bass dispersion will change. If your seating is far from the bar, dialogue may diffuse. And this is where most reviews fail, because they don't talk about room dependency. This soundbar, just like every Atmos soundbar that relies on reflection instead of direct overhead speakers, performs best in moderate ceiling heights, 7 to 10 feet, with a seating position facing the bar and sidewalls that aren't too far out. If your room matches these conditions, the experience is exceptional. If not, results will vary. And that's not the soundbar's fault. That's physics. So before making any judgments, here's the question every buyer needs to ask themselves. Do you want Atmos that relies on reflection, or Atmos delivered through physical overhead/rear speakers? Because the difference isn't subtle. It's the difference between projected immersion and direct immersion. And that brings us into the next part, where we uncover why most people misunderstand Dolby Atmos itself. The Dolby Atmos illusion, what people get wrong. There's a common belief that if a soundbar has the label Dolby Atmos, then it automatically means you're getting real overhead, three-dimensional sound. But the truth is far more complicated. Dolby Atmos isn't a speaker setup, it's an audio format. And how well that format is delivered depends entirely on whether the system can physically recreate height and spatial movement. Most soundbars don't actually have speakers pointing upward or outward. They rely on digital virtualization, meaning the height layer is simulated through software instead of physically projected through the room. This is where many people end up disappointed because they expected the ceiling to feel alive, but instead the sound stays mostly forward-facing, centered near the TV. The new Dolby Atmos soundbar we're reviewing does have upward-firing drivers. which is a correct design for real height audio. But upward speakers alone still don't guarantee immersive results. The ceiling plays a massive role. If the ceiling is too high, the sound disperses and fails to return with meaningful shape. If the ceiling is too textured or angled, the reflections scatter. If it's vaulted or open into another room, the height information simply escapes. This means someone with a 9-foot flat ceiling might walk away, saying the Atmos effect is stunning, while someone in a 14-foot open-plan living room might complain the same soundbar feels flat or underwhelming. It's not the product, it's the environment. And that's where soundbar marketing becomes misleading. Brands love to show animations of sound waves bouncing around the room, wrapping the viewer in a bubble of cinema-grade immersion. But those animations assume ideal room geometry. They don't show real-world layouts. Couches off-center, open hallways, high ceilings, or furniture absorbing reflection paths. So while the new soundbar promises a 360 degrees audio field, the actual sensation depends entirely on where you are sitting and how your room is shaped. And this isn't something many reviewers talk about, because it's easier to repeat the brand claims than explain the physics behind them. However, when the room does support it, the result is impressive. The height layer on this soundbar doesn't feel like a fake surround, and it doesn't smear sound across the room in a hazy cloud. Instead, it creates directional placement, not just upward but diagonally and laterally. You can feel helicopters move above and slightly behind you, rain patterns forming overhead, and voices echoing into vertical space rather than forward space. The Atmos effect becomes dimensional, not theatrical. That's the difference between true object-based audio and generic surround expansion. But even with that strength, there's an important shift happening in the soundbar world that can't be ignored. People are starting to prioritize accurate positional audio over raw loudness or exaggerated surround effects. More users now understand that immersion isn't how wide sound is, it's how precisely placed sound is. And this new soundbar seems to be designed around that principle. It's not trying to overwhelm your room, it's trying to map it. Yet there is one limitation we need to address. And this is where the decision becomes personal. This soundbar still relies on reflections, which means if you want absolute, guaranteed Atmos high performance, nothing will ever beat a dedicated system with physical rear and physical overhead speakers. That's not just an upgrade. That's a different category of home theater entirely. So the real question becomes, do you want convenience or do you want perfection? Because no soundbar, not this one, not Sonos, not Bose, not LG, can violate the laws of acoustics. Soundbars can get close, sometimes shockingly close, but a soundbar will never outperform a properly tuned multi-speaker system. What it can do, however, is offer 80 to 90% of that experience with 10% of the setup effort. And for most living rooms, that trade-off is not just practical, it's smart. But before we make any conclusions, there's one more test that matters more than movies or music or gaming. And that's long-term listening comfort. Because immersive sound is useless if it becomes tiring over time. That's exactly what we uncover in Part 4. The long-term listening test, where soundbars usually fail. Most reviews focus on the first impression, the demos, the excitement, the big cinematic moments. But the real test of any sound system happens days later, during normal listening. Because if a soundbar sounds impressive only when it's loud and dramatic, but becomes fatiguing, sharp, or dull during everyday use, then it's not truly good. It's just flashy. So I kept this new Dolby Atmos soundbar running for hours at a time. Movies, yes, but also quiet dialogue, background music while working, late-night, low-volume sessions. And this is where I started to see the soundbar's real personality. The vocal clarity is surprisingly soft but articulate. Not sharp, not metallic, not forced. Many Atmos soundbars push dialogue into a higher frequency range to make voices clear, but that can cause ear fatigue over time, especially in smaller rooms where reflections increase sharpness. But here, the vocal presentation leans slightly warm. That warmth protects the ear, making it easy to listen to conversation-based content, news, podcasts, dialogue-heavy films, for hours without feeling mentally tired. That is, something only a well-tuned acoustic profile can achieve, and it's one of the hardest things to get right. But the bass response is where the soundbar reveals its personality. At moderate volume, the bass feels controlled and atmospheric, rising into the room instead of punching aggressively. But when you lower the volume to quiet levels, the bass pulls back more than it should. This is a common behavior in digital amplification. Soundbars tend to scale bass intensity based on volume to avoid distortion in small rooms. And while it works technically, it means you lose some emotional weight during low-volume watching. Late-night movie scenes sometimes felt like they lost their grounding. The environment stayed immersive, but the impact softened. This is where external philosophy meets personal preference. Some users prefer subtle bass that stays controlled. Others want cinematic punch at any volume. And here's the truth. No single soundbar can satisfy both perfectly. The magic is always in the tuning compromise. And this soundbar chooses warm clarity over aggressive punch. And honestly, for most living rooms, that's the smarter choice. Because the goal isn't to shake the walls, it's to step into the scene. But where the soundbar truly separates itself is something subtle: sound placement consistency. Whether the volume is high or low, whether you're watching movies or playing games, the imaging, the wear of the sound, remains stable. Voices stay centered, effects stay directional, motion stays believable. That consistency is a sign of a solid processor and a carefully engineered acoustic stage. And that matters more than raw volume, more than exaggerated bass, more than the marketing word Atmos by itself. It means the soundbar knows what it's trying to be, and it stays that way, no matter the content. And then came the longest test of all: watching without thinking about the sound. That moment when the brain stops analyzing and simply accepts the audio as natural reality. That is the goal of every high-quality sound system. Not to constantly remind you that it's impressive, but to disappear. With this soundbar, that disappearance happened more than once. Scene stopped sounding like soundbar audio and started sounding like a space unfolding in front of me. Not always, not perfectly, but often enough that it felt meaningful. Yet there's still one last factor, the one that determines whether this soundbar is worth buying or worth skipping. And it has nothing to do with sound quality. It has to do with something far more practical and far more important. Does it make sense for your room, your habits, and your expectations? The real verdict and who this soundbar is actually for. This is where most people get the buying decision wrong because they focus on spec sheets, brand reputation, or whatever the marketing says about cinematic Atmos. But the truth is much simpler. A soundbar isn't good or bad on its own. It's only good if it fits the room, the listener, and the use case. And that's the part most reviews ignore. This new Dolby Atmos soundbar performs its best in small to medium rooms where the walls and ceiling can reflect those height and surround channels. That means apartments, bedrooms, compact living rooms, spaces where sound has boundaries to bounce from. In that environment, the 3D imaging is more convincing than most soundbars under the $1,500 range. The Atmos height layer, the side radiation, the directional detail, all of it works because the environment supports it. But if your room is wide, open, and has high ceilings, the Atmos effect weakens. Not because the soundbar isn't powerful, but because Atmos isn't magic. It needs surfaces. It needs reflection points. And that means if your living room is open plan, where your ceilings stretch above 9 feet, the 3D sound will sound flatter no matter what. In that case, soundbars like the LG S95AR or Samsung Q990 with actual wireless rear speakers will always outperform a reflection-based system. Not because they are better, but because they send sound where it's supposed to be instead of depending on room acoustics. So here's the real verdict. Not hype, not marketing, just truth. If your room supports it, this new Dolby Atmos soundbar can deliver deep clarity, precise sound placement, and a natural vocal tone that you can listen to for hours without fatigue. It's not trying to overwhelm you with booming bass or exaggerated effects. It wants to immerse you, not impress you. And that makes it more realistic than dramatic. But if you want that heavy cinematic punch, that the room just shook excitement, or the true sound behind you surround field, then you'll still want a system with dedicated rear speakers. Because surround sound is not just about channels, it's about directional presence. And no matter how good reflection-based Atmos gets, physics still matters. So instead of asking, is this soundbar better? The real question is, does this soundbar match the room you're actually in? If yes, it performs on a level that genuinely belongs in 2026. If no, you'll blame the soundbar for something that wasn't its fault. This is why audio decisions should be personal, not influenced by trends or brand loyalty. And if you've watched this far, you're probably serious about getting this right. Buying smart, not just buying big, the simple guide. Before you choose any Dolby Atmos soundbar, ask yourself 3 questions. How big is my room? Smaller rooms benefit more from reflection-based Atmos. Larger rooms need rear speakers. How loud do I actually listen? If you watch movies at low to moderate volume, clarity matters more than bass. If you listen loud, you'll want stronger low-end presence, maybe even an external sub-upgrade. Don't want to feel sound around me, or just hear it clearly? Immersion requires speaker placement. Clarity requires tuning. Decide which one you prioritize, because no soundbar does both perfectly. When you answer those honestly, you'll know exactly which soundbar makes sense, and you'll never fall for brand marketing again. Final outro. If this breakdown helped you understand what actually matters in Dolby Atmos soundbars, then stay with this channel, because Interface Craft is where we strip away the hype and focus on what really delivers performance. Here we test, compare, listen, and break down audio gear like real humans, not corporate reviewers. So if you want sound that feels alive and advice that saves you money while actually improving your listening experience, make sure you subscribe, because what's coming next will change the way you look at home audio for the rest of this year. I'll see you in the next one.